And we welcome the lovely Daniel James to Pop Quiz. We've had a few people on here, Dan. Some have done well, some haven't done quite so well. Some have disappeared in smoke. But you've decided to go for number ones, mainly the 80s, maybe a few 90s.
Yeah, I thought I'd give that a try. I love that period of time in music. I think we had some cracking tracks. So fingers crossed I might get a couple right.
Yeah, it was a good period for music, and again now I think in the last 2 years, so having done the Heritage Chart, I've had so much good music. Before that, I had so many people saying, "Oh, I don't like current music. I don't like current music," and I thought, no, you only don't like the current music that you're being fed. There's a lot of other good stuff that you're not hearing that is good, and there is so much stuff. I mean, you must listen to the Heritage Chart and think, "Oh, I love that. Oh, I love that. That's a great song."
I mean, currently, Phil and Michelle with Silently is just to die. It's just beautiful. There are so many lovely tracks out in the Heritage Chart, and I sit there, and because as an artist, you're busy rushing all over the place. Sometimes it's only when you sit down quietly and listen to the Heritage Chart, and you think, wow, and they're coming at you left, right, and centre. There's some great tracks, and it's basically you've rejuvenated artists because we were writing away and recording and nobody was hearing it. So you've given everybody the opportunity, as you say, to hear what else is out there. It's not all Justin Bieber, it's Justin Bieber's granddad.
That's right. Yeah, I mean, and even people who are major stars like John Lodge said, "Well, I did an album during lockdown, and I thought, well, no one's going to hear it. Obviously, no one's going to play it." And suddenly, he's getting played on the radio. So it also, I think, it inspires you. If you know there is an outlet, it inspires you to maybe write more and record more.
I think you're right. I've been writing over the last couple of months, and I probably wouldn't have because I was doing promotion for the track. But you kind of think, no, look, you hear these people coming out with tracks, and you think, God, that's a great track. I need to write something. Really, it inspires you to keep going. And I look back to people like the era with Duran Duran and Spandau Ballet, and Adam and the Ants, Kim Wilde, and there was this friendly rivalry going on. And I think you've now brought that to the heritage artist. There's this kind of friendly rivalry of, oh, have you heard so-and-so's new single, and it inspires you to keep going. And I think that was what was going on in the 80s. All those people thinking, I want another track out, I want to go away and write something cracking.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. I mean, Spandau would go, "Oh, have you heard the new Duran single?" Whoa, and Duran, "Well, have you heard the new Spandau single?" But it happened back in the 60s as well with the Beatles and the Beach Boys. John and Paul would go, "Hey, have you heard the new Brian Wilson? What he's done? Wow!" And Brian Wilson would be going, "Hey, the Beatles are really coming out some good." So they'd inspire each other. And in fact, John will come into the studio with a song, and McCartney would go, "Blimey, did you write that last night? I better go home and write an even better one." So
Yeah.
you're doing better, like two runners. You're doing better and better times against each other. And I think you're right. I think in the chart, people will hear, maybe somebody like Phil, maybe the Automatics or the Starjets or Johnny Hates Jazz, and go, "Oh yeah, that's given me an idea. I really want to write something like that."
Yeah, and these are quality people, quality writers. So you're being inspired by your peers, and that there's nothing better than that. It's almost like with the Seb Coe and
Steve Ovett.
Steve Odom. Yeah, do
Yeah,
you remember their rivalry? That
yeah,
was fantastic. So we're
yeah.
all, inching ahead looking for the tape, and you're the
And
tape, and Heritage Chart is the tape.
I'm the A&R man, the radio A&R man. But no, you're right. I mean, Coe and Ovett wouldn't have done such fast times had they been running by themselves.
Exactly.
No question. Right, well, we got a few questions to weave into the whole scenario here, and that's it. Fortify yourself with a 10-ton mug of cappuccino. Okay, question one: which band spent 9 weeks at number one, starting in June 1984? 9 weeks at number one.
Ooh. It wouldn't be Frankie Goes to Hollywood, yeah?
It was. Remember the song? 9 weeks.
Well, was it Relax? Or was it The Power of Love?
Or
Or
was
was
it?
it or was it do you know what? I'm singing The Power of Love. That's the problem.
I know.
Um,
And there were three, what you're thinking,
yeah,
there were
yeah, yeah,
three
yeah, yeah,
songs
yeah.
out, Power of Love.
Yeah,
Huey Lewis, Jennifer Rush, and Frankie Goes to Hollywood, all called Power of Love and all different songs. It was
yeah, and I
their,
remember
yeah, it was one of their three number ones.
slipped. I'm not going to do that. It slipped my mind. Unless you can give me a humming clue.
Um, it's really not a song you can hum, you know.
No, it's not. Theirs are
This,
all a bit too.
this is the warning.
Oh, it's the one about the nuclear thing. It's the one.
Yeah.
Ah, da, 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 da. I'll have to hum the home song, Mike. No, I'm not going to get
Du,
it.
du, 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 du.
Two tribes go to
Go
war.
to war.
And
You got
oh,
it.
thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, they had three
Right.
crackers, didn't they?
Yeah, did three number ones. I
I
love
didn't realize
Welcome.
two.
Hmm?
I didn't realize two tribes had 9 weeks. Wow.
Yeah, nine weeks at number one. Welcome to the Pleasure Dome. I loved as well. That was a great track. But it's that infectious Trevor Horn thing. I was speaking to Trevor a few years ago, and it's that and it just drove the songs along, didn't it?
You
Fantastic.
know what? You've read my mind. I was listening to some Spandau Ballet and some and the rhythm and the guitar. If you look at the 80s, you had like Haircut 100, my favorite
Yeah,
shirt. There
yeah,
were a lot of bands at that time that really emphasized that kind of rhythmic guitar playing. And then
yeah,
counterposing that, you had people like Nile Rodgers doing really great bass to go with it.
yeah,
And I
yeah,
love that. I love that creativity, and that's why I picked this period, because you
yeah,
had those two things going on, and then you had the keyboard coming in. Sometimes nowadays, and I'm not criticizing because modern music's amazing. There's some great stuff, but people, it's like I always find a song is like a jigsaw, and Madonna did it on Vogue. You piece together all the little instruments, and some people just miss them out. They don't realize there's a little gap to fill something in there. Let's put.
yeah,
You might laugh, but on the Loving You Christmas mix, we were nearly finished, and I heard bongos, and Melissa looked at me as if I lost the plot. But there's a little section in it, only 8 seconds, where bongos come in. But when you listen to the track, they just jump out at you just for a couple of seconds, and
yeah.
it's like a. I mean, I'm not comparing myself to a great painter or anything, but it's like an artist. The little bits are the important bits.
Yeah. Oh, no, absolutely. And vocally, I think the Beatles and ABBA both did that. They put things in the background that you almost don't notice until you take them away. And then there's a hole. But no, you're absolutely right. I've done that a lot in the past. I go, that we could just do a bit of Lobo in there. So I was like, what? Just a little bit, just a little bit in there, or a bit of violin. So you're absolutely right. You're absolutely right. It's those things can make it. And we're doing a project at the moment, and I got a call yesterday saying Nile Rodgers is putting down some guitar for it. I thought, great.
Lucky man, lucky man.
Yeah. Right, question two. Fill in the missing band artists from these number one 80s duets. You'll get these. Xanadu, Olivia Newton-John, and...
ELO.
Yep. The Only Way Is Up. Yaz and the...
Plastic Population.
Yep. Ebony and Ivory, Paul McCartney, and...
Stevie Wonder.
Stevie Wonder, Living Doll, Cliff Richard, and...
The Comic Relief. I don't know what they were called. It was about
Oh, come on.
15,000.
You're going to get
Sorry.
this one. You're going to get this one, Daniel.
Oh yeah, it's. I can see him now. Unfortunately, it's just slipped my mind. Sorry.
It's the name of one of his other number ones.
Cliff Richard and the Living Dolls.
No, it was Living Doll, Cliff Richard, and the... Da 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 down, 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 da da
Young
da.
Ones, of
And the
course.
young ones. And the
Yeah,
young...
brilliant. Oh God, yes. The
Yeah.
old Shad.
Yeah.
Yes.
With and the young ones from the TV series, obviously.
Yes.
I Knew You Were Waiting, George Michael, and...
Aretha Franklin.
Yeah, Aretha Franklin. Right, question three. This question is right. Who had a number one with these songs? All right. First time. Difficult. It's a one-off. It's a tricky one, this one, I think. Although it was the number one.
It's a big power ballad.
Yeah, first time.
First time. It's an American act. It's not Aerosmith, but I think it's one of those.
No, she had the
Sorry?
same name as a well-known British guitarist.
I was gonna say somebody called May, but no. Oh, I can see her as well. this is so annoying. Your brain plays tricks on you. Um, first time. No, sorry, Mike.
Robin
Go on,
Beck.
Robin Beck, of course, yeah.
Robin Beck. Yeah. Okay, and You'll Never Stop Me Loving You.
You'll never stop me from loving you. Um, is that Sonia?
It was Sonia, absolutely right. Yeah, and Nothing's Going to Change My Love for You.
Glenn Medeiros.
Glenn Medeiros. Wonderful. Really great. Real 1830s song, that one. Which satirical puppet song kept Patti LaBelle and Michael McDonald on my own from reaching number one in May 1986? It went to number
Was
one, a
it?
satirical puppet song
Yeah, was it?
from a TV series.
Yeah, the Spitting Image did one, didn't they? I can see them
Yeah,
on the aeroplane with like the
it
puppets
was.
of Thatcher. Put
It
your
was.
hand. Was it a spoof on "Put Your Hands in the Air"? It was a spoof on an Agadoo or something. It wasn't that, but
It was. And it did mention a certain feathered animal.
what emu? No, surely not.
Now, the chicken
No.
song, the chicken
Oh,
song.
the chicken song. Yes, thank you.
Yeah.
I'm glad. Do you know what? I like it when you put me out of my misery because I'm torturing myself.
That's good. How did you, I mean, various people have said, how did you and Melissa come to work together? Do you have a
Well,
history or not?
when I was in Yale, Melissa was actually a runner. Do you remember No Miss Studios in Shepherd's Bush?
Indeed, I do. Simon Backwards. I worked there a few times. Yes.
I mean, well, Jeff Chegwin was Yale's manager, and Jeff had an office on the second floor.
Yeah.
And Melissa, oh, Jeff was great. I actually got a message from Jeff the other day. He's still going strong, bless him.
It's great.
Melissa was a runner in Nomis, and I was in the cafe, and she came over to talk to us. And she said, "Oh, I want to write songs." And well, she said, "I want to be a pop star." And I said, "Go away and write some songs. Never mind. I want to go," because people always say, "I want to be a pop star." There's a whole different ball game involved,
Yeah.
So I suggested go away and write some songs, and I would bump into her occasionally. She'd play me snippets and whatever, and we just kind of loosely kept in touch over the years. And coming towards the end of lockdown, she sent me a photograph of her and her husband who'd moved to Canterbury, and we just got talking. And she asked me what I was doing, and there's that story about me not working in the industry for years because Yale ended so badly, and I was in a bit of a bad way emotionally. And I'd started writing again during lockdown. I went for walks on my own, and that's how Set This Free came about, and all my songs, the recent songs. And she said, why don't you come and play some of the songs? So as soon as lockdown was over, I popped down to meet Melissa, played her some of my material, and never want to miss a trick. She said to me, we should do something together. So we just kicked around a few ideas. We demoed Loving You, and then we kind of put it on the shelf. And I went away and did all this fabulous heritage chart stuff and amazing promotion for my 2 tracks. And then we talked again, and we just thought, let's polish it up. Let's have a go. So we basically went in the studio and polished it up. And that really is it. I mean, we're not going to be a long-term, duo or anything. It was just something. I think we kind of came full circle. It was nice for her because she'd always wanted to have a record out, and it was nice for me because she'd come to me when she first started. So it's been a nice full circle, really. And then, of course, I've always wanted a Christmas record because when you were growing up, when I would watch the telly, there would be like Slade and Wizzard and all those great groups that would always do Christmas records. And when you're a kid, Christmas records really jump out at you.
Yeah.
So I also, if I got the opportunity, I'd love to do a Christmas song. And of course, I haven't got a Christmas song, but in my mind, I can hear different things. And I rang Melissa, and they just laughed at me, in the studio. They thought I was mad. But I managed to persuade them, and we actually did it in 5 hours. We got it done in 5 hours. And I was hearing, I lie in bed and I hear Christmas bells, I know most people get taken away for saying something like that, but it's like that jigsaw thing comes in my head. I hear a song and then I hear other possibilities for it.
Yeah.
So in a long story that should have been shorter, that's Melissa and I.
And also, I mean, it's the choice of song, isn't it? Where if you're doing an old song, you've got to bring something different to it rather than just copying what's gone before. You've got to come up with a different arrangement or a different idea or a different tempo.
Well, Loving You is such a heartfelt ballad. nobody could better Minnie Riperton. Of course, written by her husband and her, Richard Rudolph, who's still alive. Minnie, unfortunately, isn't. But if, like you say, if you touch somebody's precious piece of work, you either have to really drastically change it or just copy it and then apologize. And basically, Loving You, I just thought we've got to take this in a totally different direction. And I wanted to add those layers, those harmonies, the la 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 la's. One of your listeners contacted me the other day on Facebook. She counted up, there are 78 la la la's on the track. And I didn't even know, isn't it embarrassing to admit that I didn't know how many la la la's we had on the track? But again, it was just when we were putting the track together, it's like a tapestry. You kind of build it and build it. And occasionally you pull something out, because when you put something new in, you realize that the other bit you put in an hour earlier actually doesn't fit anymore, it doesn't work.
Yeah.
And that was and so doing the Loving You, it was just a case of changing it very drastically without insulting Richard Rudolph and Minnie Riperton. And if it hadn't been anywhere near as good, because I think it's quite decent, but if it was only halfway there, it wouldn't have been worth releasing. And again, with the Christmas mix, it's just a case of paying it a compliment,
Yeah.
And we've sent it off to them, I've sent the tracks off to them, I wouldn't dream of doing something and not sending it to Dick.
Yeah, no, that's good. And it doesn't matter about the number of La La La's. I mean, Bill Withers and Lovely Day, I don't know, he probably had nearly 100 lovely days in that song.
Yeah. I mean, when you're doing it yourself, you don't think of those kind of things. But that's the great thing about fans and listeners, is they find things in your songs that you didn't even know you had yourself.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Absolutely. Here we go then with question 5. 5 bands and artists that spent 5 weeks at number 1, 4 weeks, 3, 2, and 1. Can you put them in order? Okay, so you tell me how many weeks you think. I'll give you the 5. One had 5 weeks, 1 4 weeks, 1 3, 1 2, and 1 1. Human League, unless you've got a pencil, you want to jot them down. I don't mind. Human League, Don't You Want Me Baby. 5, 4, 3, or 2 or 1 weeks at number 1. Human League.
I'm tempted to say 4 weeks.
You're close, it's 5. You're very close though. Renee and Renata, Save Your Love.
Oh, 3 weeks or 2 weeks? Now let me see. It's got to be more than 1 week, surely. Save your love, my darling.
Love, my darling, save your love.
I'm going to go for 4, actually. I'm going to be cheeky and go for 4.
It's the cheeky right answer. Absolutely, it is 4. Save your love, my darling, save your love. And it was number 1. It beat everything else for about 4 weeks.
But you know what? Do you remember in that period, Mike, you had things like the thing that kept Vienna off the top of the charts as well.
Joe Dolce, Shut Up Your Face, yeah.
Yeah, Shut Up. Like another Italian. The thing is, that was the thing about the 80s. You had the Midgeurs and the people with great pedigree, the writers. But occasionally, a cracking song would get kicked in the you-know-whats by a piece of pantomime,
And nobody ever admitted to buying it. Did you buy Joe Dolce? No, not me. Did you buy Grandad? No, not me, mate. And yet you find it in their collection. Bizarrely, Joe Dolce, even though he had an Italian name, he was Australian, I think. He had an Italian name, but I think he was Australian.
A lot of Italians emigrated over there, didn't they?
Yeah, that's what it was. They were sent over there. Right. Bucks Fizz, Making Your Mind Up. Won Eurovision.
Yeah. I think they were definitely number 1 more than 1 week. But was it 2 or was it 3? Now that's a close one. I think their later hits, like My Camera Never Lies, maybe had 1 or 2 weeks. But I think because it was Eurovision, should I go for 2 or 3? I'm hovering on 2 or 3. Let's go for 3. Let's be brave.
You're brave enough to go for 3, and it was 3. Falco, Rock Me Amadeus.
Rock Me Amadeus.
He was Austrian, wasn't he? Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. The angry Austrian man. Yeah. I want to say 2, but I'm leaning to 1. But I don't know.
I keep leaning.
It's a bit like my tree, Mike.
Yeah. You've got it against the wall so it doesn't fall over.
That's usually my position. I'm going to go for, I don't know what made me feel this, but I think 1.
1 is the answer. So David Bowie, Ashes to Ashes by process of elimination, had how
Oh,
many weeks? Forgot what
this
you
is a
said
tough
now,
one.
haven't you?
This is a tough one. I can see the video now because he was in the desert.
It's the only one
You know,
you haven't said. It's the only number of weeks you haven't said yet.
yes, um, two.
2 weeks is the right answer. You did pretty well. I mean, that's not easy because it's so close. It is so close there. Question 6. Which school choir was number one December 1980?
Ah, it's the lady from Coronation Street, Sally Lindsay. It's St. Winifred School Choir, my mum's name. I couldn't
Yeah.
forget Winifred.
Winifred. Not many people are called Winnie now, are they?
Well, the worst thing for my mum, her generation, they called her Winifred Catherine. And years ago, the toilet was called the water closet. So at school, she was
Oh
teased
no.
mercilessly. Yeah, water closet.
Oh no. Well, there was or is an engineering firm in Chichester, but and the gentleman, his first name is Wayne, and his parents, Mr. and Mrs. Kerr, actually called him Wayne, and the sign is up on the gate. You think, really? Did they not actually stop and think about that? I did stop a friend of mine once calling his daughter something. I said, "Do you realise if you call it?" Oh, I hadn't even thought about it. But yeah, initials. If your initials like BO or WC, you're going to go through life struggling, aren't you? Through school, I should say, struggling.
Kids are cruel, you know.
What did you get called at school? Do you have a nickname?
I did, but I couldn't print them. I couldn't say them. I, well, my real name is actually my mum and dad christened me Colin, but they also were using Daniel. So I used to get Colin thrown in occasionally, and I get cauliflower.
Oh, yeah, yeah. Cauliflower. Your kids
Not
are
the most
cruel, aren't
witty, and not really very catchy when you're running along the football pitch, you know, and someone shouts, "Kick it, cauliflower." You know, it doesn't really work, does it?
they? I actually got mine on the football pitch because I used to practice keepy uppy for ages on the knee. Funny if I dreamt about that last night. That is really weird. I dreamt last night I was playing and people going, wow, that's amazing. On the foot, on the knee, keeping it up. And one of our masters bellowed when I got the ball and I'm doing all this fancy stuff with it. He said, get rid of it, twinkle toes. And that was it. I was done from that moment on. I
Oh,
twinkle toes to twink, and that was it. And it came from keepy uppy in football. Yeah,
isn't it funny where nicknames come from? You'd never associate Twink or Twinkle or anything with someone doing the football thing, you know?
I know.
But there
I
you go.
know. It's like
Was he one
in.
of your
Hmm?
was he one of your favourite teachers or not?
Oh no, no, no! He was a bit of a bully in a way, quite a loudmouth guy, and he screamed across the pitch. Yeah, it's funny.
What
I
was
mean,
your
those
favourite?
initials, the nicknames come from odd places. In Jennings and Derbyshire that I read when I was a kid, the Jennings books, there was a character called C.A. Templeton, and because he was C.A. Templeton, he got called Cat, or then Cat's Meat or something. And then that went from cat to dog, to dog's body, to Bod. So his nickname was Bod. But through this weird sort of convoluted labyrinth of, C.A. Templeton, cat's meat, to dog, dog's body, Bod. You had to explain the way you get to that.
Imagine when he meets a girlfriend and one of his mates comes and goes, "Oh, hiya, Bod," and she goes, "Where did you get Bod from?" It's going to take him half an hour and at least two gin and tonics to explain it to her, you know?
And she's fallen asleep and gone off with your best mate. Yeah.
Well, yeah, exactly.
Right.
But you must,
Okay. Here we here we
I was
go.
going to say, I
Question
think
seven.
you must have
Wh-
went to
wh-
a better class at school to me, Mike, because you
Is what?
called them
Sorry.
masters. I say you must have went to a better class of school than me because you were talking about masters and things, which makes me think of Tom Brown's School Days. My school was a little bit more leaning towards the movie Kes. Have you seen Kes?
Oh, oh, I love Kes. What a great film that is.
One of our PE teachers was very much in that mode, you know.
Oh yeah. Oh, that was a great film where the little kid on the end, and you got to take a message to the headmaster, and he still got beaten. He still got the strap. You need to come to take a message. Oh dear. Yeah. Great film. Haven't seen that on TV for ages, Kes. I
No,
love it.
it's one of those ones that when it comes around, it's really you think, oh, this is fabulous. It's a piece of
Yeah.
social commentary, isn't it?
It really is. Yeah, it was quite sort of quite left field for the time, wasn't it?
Mm.
And who? I'm trying to get the teacher's name. Brian. Glover.
Oh,
Brian
Brian
Glover.
Glover, yeah.
Brian Glover was the teacher who later played Magwitch for me in Great Expectations alongside Darren Day.
Wow, how interesting.
Yeah, and he was very
It's
good.
funny
He
when
played,
you
yeah.
it's funny when you watch people and then you work with them, isn't it?
Oh yeah, it's great though. I mean, I love it with people whose records I bought when I was a kid, and you're sitting in the studio looking through the glass and they're singing your song, and you think, oh, this is great. Right, okay. Which female artist had the most number ones of the 1980s?
I'm tempted to say either Madonna or Whitney Houston. I don't know whether I'd be miles away when on either of those.
No, you'd be very close on both of them, but
Yes,
only one of them is the right answer.
yeah. um, it's difficult because I know Whitney scored a load of biggies in the States, but Madonna had that kind of pop thing as well. So, this is a tough one. As Whitney used to say, "How will I know?" Come on, Daniel. Madonna or I'm I'm probably wrong, but I'm going to stick with Madge.
You're right. Yeah, it was Madonna. Absolutely right. Well done. Right, question 8. Well-known bands and artists, but only one number one throughout the 80s. Can you name their number one? Eddie Grant.
It's not Atlantic Avenue. Gonna dance with Eddie Grant. Dance.
Yes.
No, do you want to dance with
or
me?
not, as the case may be.
I don't want to dance
Eh,
with my baby.
No.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the one.
Oh, I love Eddie Grant. Fabulous. I love Eddie Grant.
I don't want to dance. Yeah, I mean, he's had, 2 or 3 really good tracks out recently, Eddie. He's terrific. Really lovely. Fergal Sharkey, his 80s number one.
A good heart these days is hard to find.
Very
Yes
good.
or
And
no?
this one you'll get. Kajagoogoo.
Ooh, I was going to say ooh ah just a little bit. Then it's ooh ah
That
too
was,
shy, isn't it? Too shy.
yeah. No, ooh, yeah. That was the follow up. Too Shy, yeah, Too Shy, absolutely
Yeah.
right. And Lionel Richie.
Lionel had a few though, didn't he? The one that he did the molding of the hello,
That's it.
it's me
That's it. It was
again
Hello. Stop there. Stop there. Don't go on. It was Hello.
with the
Yeah,
massive
brilliant.
sculpture. Do you remember the video with the sculpture and stuff?
Yeah. They
You
did some
probably
very
introduced
inventive,
it.
they did some very inventive videos then. I mean, now it's just like, get your kid off, girls, and do some dancing and move around and writhe a bit. But they're actually people, Godly and Cream did some very inventive stuff. And so did so many of the bands, really trying to think of a good way of helping to sell the song, really.
I agree. Everybody, like I say, in the 80s, I always say that, we had Margaret Thatcher, we had Ronald Reagan, and there was such a backlash against them that, people became more creative to show their anger and their dislike. And we had, art, songwriting, we just had, and television, programs. We had such a fertile time because people were angry, young people coming out of uni, like UB40 on the dole, I just think that that period, we used our imaginations more. Everybody seems to get it on a plate these days. You just press a button.
Yeah.
I know that's
And of course, now everyone could just, make their own stuff and put it out. Then you had to have a record deal. Back in the day, you couldn't put something out unless you had a record deal. Someone had to believe in you, pay money for you, put money behind you, market you to get you out there. So they had to look at the whole package and decide whether to go with you or not. And if they didn't, you didn't have a record out. Especially early 70s, 60s, it was so recording artists. Oh, even if they hadn't had a hit, the fact that they were recording artists meant their money went up.
exactly. I think
Yeah.
that's another reason why the Heritage Chart does so well, because the people that listen to the Heritage Chart are the people that knew how hard it was to get a record deal in the 60s, 70s, and 80s. So the people mostly on the Heritage Chart are people who had to work their backsides off in the 60s, 70s, and 80s, and even 90s, because then it was like the acting world. You had to earn the right to be there, just to be there. It's like Jeff Chapman used to say, you're not on the turntable of hits until you've got a record deal. So when we got our record deal, I can remember him saying, "Hey boys, you know, you're on the turntable of hits now." You know.
The sand sable. I like it. The sand sable. It's great. I
Yeah.
love working. I love working with Keith with his brother on on Saturday Superstore. We had a great time. But Keith was like a bundle of energy. Hey, 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 And I remember he told me, he used to go and knock on the doors and give somebody 10 grand on the early morning TV. He'd knock on the door and say, "Hey, you've won 10 grand. How do you feel?" "Oh, wow, great, thanks, Keith." So he was the bearer of good news. And he went to one lady's house. He knocked on the door and he said, "Hey, Keith Chegwin, you've won 10 grand. How do you feel?" She said, "Oh," she said, "I'm so pleased." But she said, "Oh, do you know, I'm pleased it's not live. I don't want no one to know I've been in jail." And of course, it was live. And another guy, when this guy leapt up and he's punching the air, he's climbing the walls, he's leaping up and down. Then he stopped and he said, "It won't affect me disability payments, will it?"
Brilliant.
Genius, genius.
You know, I
Keith.
remember. I remember brown sauce.
The what? The
I remember brown sauce.
Oh, brown sauce. Well, that was Keith and Maggie and Noel. They did that. They occasionally, did a song. We did one called Two Left Feet. Very forgettable. But yeah, they occasionally made us do a song, but it was pretty naff, middle of the road kind of stuff. But Keith was hilarious. He said to me one day, because he was like so wired, he'd been knackered after the show, and he said, what time do you get up on a Saturday? I said, "What?" And it may be about 5:30 or 6. Then I have breakfast and I drive in. He said, "No, no, no." He said, "When you get home." I said, "What do you mean?" I said, "I normally go and play football or play tennis." He said, "Do you?" "I go to bed, me, when I get home, and I get up about 6 or 7 in the evening." What he meant is, when do you get up on a Saturday evening? I thought, but he was so knackered because he just wired.
Yeah. Oh my goodness. Yeah, they were Jeff's the character as well, you know, but very different. He hasn't got that kind of, he's more laconic, he's more laid back, Jeff.
Yeah, yeah, and Janice, their sister, is as well. Lovely.
Yeah.
Great. Okay, now then, question 9. Elton John scored his very first solo number one in June 1990 with which song? His first solo number one. It was a double-sider.
Wasn't Sacrifice, was it?
It was. It was Sacrifice with the Healing Hands on the other side. Question. Yeah,
Sorry,
that
I'm
was it.
singing along. Forgive me.
When you had a hit instant replay, which reached number 10 in February 1990, which female artist was top of the chart at the time? Because you'd be eyeing them up, thinking, can we get there? In fact, for the whole month of February, do you remember who it was?
Nothing compares to you.
Yeah, very
Great
good.
video. The
It
little
was.
tear that she had coming in her eye. I think she knocked Kylie off. I think Kylie was number one.
Yeah.
Or Kylie was after her. I think Kylie had, the song from the movie The Delinquents.
Yes.
Kylie had that. So either Kylie was just before her or just after her. But no, I can remember being at Top of the Pops. She came in for one of the Top of the Popses that we were on.
Right.
Great days. You know what it's like at the Top of the Pop studio, Mike. Great
Yeah.
days,
Yeah.
Wonderful. There's nothing like that feeling. Nothing like that feeling. And of course, I'd been a cheerleader years before. And I stood around, I'd probably stood over your shoulder, all the DJs when they had the cheerleaders standing there.
Yeah.
So to go back as an artist, it was just the thrill of a lifetime,
Yeah. Oh, it was great. And Pinky, he was one of the cheerleaders as well. I remember Pinky.
Pinky
It
and
was
Tony,
wonderful.
there was two of them. Pinky
Huh?
and Tony, Pinky
That's
and
right.
Tony.
Yeah.
Well, Pinky and Tony danced. If you get Kelly Marie's video, Feels Like I'm in Love, they're dressed in sailor suits. They're dancing either side of her in Trafalgar Square.
Wonderful. Wonderful. I loved it because you only got a call the week before to say you were doing it the following week. It wasn't booked ages in advance. And then you make another call and say, who's on? Because you were hoping people to be on that you were playing or you were championing or mates of yours. And you go, oh, great, so-and-so's on, so-and-so's on. So it was wonderful fun.
Nothing worse than turning up at Top of the Pops, Mike, usually in the summer. And when you got the yellow script, you were standing on the black stage, and I
Yeah.
picked the yellow scripting script up, and it was like 5 VTs and 3 acts. It was like, no, we want the act, I can remember Duran coming in, Spandau coming in. I had to stand in for Dave Garn once in Depeche Mode. He was late coming in. And of course, Michael Hurl's in the gallery. He just shouts to the floor manager, ask Daniel or whoever to stand in. And I can remember it was just can't get enough. And I was, miming away with the boys. And I mean, they were lovely, you know, they knew what was going on. And then Dave Garn came in, but he didn't come on the stage. He just leaned on the side and made me do it in front of him, you know.
Oh, I
Great
love it.
time. Yeah.
I can't imagine Michael Hurl saying to somebody, "Would you ask Daniel?" I can imagine him saying, "Will you tell Daniel to get up there?" Not ask him.
Well, the floor manager was Tony Redston, who I
Yeah,
remember,
yeah,
really great guy. And I don't think Michael said that to him, but Michael translated it.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Yes, Michael would have been a bit more straight down the line with it, I think. Okay, question 11. Which Christmas number one kept Last Christmas by Wham from reaching number one in 1984?
It's Christmas time.
Yeah,
Don't be
absolutely right.
afraid.
It was
Band-Aid.
Band-Aid, yeah,
Simple
Last
one.
Christmas. Famously the only million seller of the decade not to reach number one. But again, what a video, Last Christmas. You just want to be there, don't you? You want to be there with them in that video. It's wonderful. Yeah.
Yeah, I read a story. They went for a couple of days and, you know, stayed in that little cabin and they just shot away. And you just want to be there because it's everybody's idea of Christmas, isn't it?
Yeah. No, it is. I saw Marty Pellow the other day was up in Scotland writing in a log cabin, which is great. And somebody sent through the other day about 40 minutes of George and Andrew and myself on Superstore, just chatting away, having a laugh and having fun, having a giggle before everyone moved into being ultra cool and not talking to anyone else. But back in the day, it was just sort of everyone was. It was just fun. You know, they'd say we had three and a quarter hour live shows. Who's coming in? Oh, so and so's coming in. Oh, great. So, oh, fantastic. And it was just like having your mates around on a Saturday morning. Yeah, it was
I
great.
think in those days, I think you all, I mean, there were probably a few exceptions, but you all could see, as a kid watching TV, you all liked each other, you all got on. So when you saw you chatting with Andrew and George, you just looked like mates. And that's what it looked like, you know?
Yeah,
And that, I think that influenced a lot of people coming along later, presenters, because you kind of made it look so relaxed and so natural, because it just looked like you were sitting there, you know, chatting with your mates.
yeah. And later, you know, these people sort of they got elevated into certain areas. I remember years later, I was in a hotel with a theatre producer discussing something, and George came in. He came out, oh, hello, mate, how are you? And gave me a hug. And afterwards, this guy said, hey, he said, you know George Michael? I said, well, yeah. But suddenly they elevated these people into some exalted position in their minds, or maybe the record companies had, or the management, I don't know, they sidelined them. One way or another, I think, you know, probably like the Elvis syndrome, you can't help feeling that if some of these people who left us too soon for odd reasons had a bunch of really good mates around them, excuse me, they'd have stuck around. Someone to go, hey, listen, bit of advice from me, mates.
I, I, I always feel it's strange, and I don't want to pick anybody out, but when you read these obituaries of people who die young, they always have these people that come out who purport to be, you know, they say close friend, close friend. If some one of those people had been my close friend, I'd have said, look, I'm coming over at 8 o'clock. I'm going to stay the night, and I would
Yeah,
make sure they didn't pick up the drink or didn't pick up the drug. You know, I always think if you have a close friend in distress, why aren't you there for them? You know,
yeah, yeah,
what in what capacity were you the showbiz close friend? In other words, you met when you were doing blankety blank, or you met at the embassy club and had a drink. Was it that kind
yeah,
of friendship, or were you a friend? You know. And another thing, you were talking about the artists of the 80s. I think because the 80s was that period where a lot of people started off when they were on the dole. It was tough times, the 80s, and a lot of them
yeah,
used the dole like a university grant. They wrote, you know, like they wrote their material while they could be on the dole for a year in those days. And that was when they made their art, they made their sculpture, they wrote those songs, people like Boy George and all of that. And I think when they got their success, I think to a lot of them it was a huge surprise how much success they got, because they made that whole group crack the States in such an enormous way. I think they never forgot the signing on period, that tough period.
yeah.
So when they came in the studio with someone like you, they reverted back to, they were just themselves, you know.
Yeah, I think often maybe management, record companies push them into a corner where people felt, well, they're a big star now, I can't approach them. Whereas often they're probably sitting there by themselves having beans on toast thinking, I wish someone would come around and see me. I remember a couple of artists and a very, very major artist saying that when they go to a dinner or somewhere and sit down, they say, nobody sits either side of me. They just don't come and sit next to me. I think, why isn't anyone sitting next to me? I think, well, he's a big star. I can't sit next to him. I'll sit down there. I'll sit over there. And I think people tend to feel like that they can't sit next to you, can't buy you a drink, they can't come and talk to you because there must be somebody else sitting next to you more important than me. So I
Mm.
think it does play strange games with the people, and then you've got the pressures of still coming up with songs, still maintaining your position, which is always tricky.
No, I think you're right. I think there's a whole lot. Once you get there, it's sustaining it.
Yeah, it is. It is. Right. Okay. Question 12. The number one numbers game. Each of these subsequent artists have numbers in one of their song titles. Number ones. They're easy. These are easy for you. Paul Hardcastle.
No, 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 19.
Yeah, 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 yeah. Yes. KLF. Probably the trickiest one here. KLF.
All I can think about is Justified and Ancient with Tammy Wynette. Oh my God, KLF. No, sorry, Mike.
3 a.m. Eternal.
Ah, of course.
Yeah, number one.
Yeah.
Again, a number one that probably doesn't get played. There are certain number ones that always get played, and if you said to people, they go, "Was it? Don't know." It's one of those. It's got to number one. Frankie Goes to Hollywood. You can't
Two,
stumble on the same one twice.
two tribes. I've got a
Yes.
blockage for Frankie today, haven't I? I've got a blockage.
Well, I think it's because you're not thinking of a number, are you? Really, two tribes. I know it is. Michael Jackson. Again, simpler than you think.
Michael Jackson. Ooh. One,
Yes.
not One Day I'll Fly Away. No.
One day.
One Day in Your Life.
That's the
No.
one. That's the one.
I can
Uh,
remember Legs and Co. doing a routine to that at Top of the Pops.
and the thing
It's
was, with
just in my
Lexico,
head.
you could tell which song they were doing. You need to turn the sound down because they said, "I'd give my heart to you." You know, they do everything. You could turn the sound down. You still knew what the song was. It was
Oh,
brilliant.
bless. You
You
know,
know this
Flick.
one? Hmm?
Yeah,
Flick, yeah, Flick Colby. Flick
yeah,
Colby.
Flick and Ruth were lovely. Flick. You
Yeah.
know, when I was a cheerleader, I lived in Chiswick at the time, and I didn't have a phone, and I'd have to phone them. This is, when I was very young. I'd have to phone them from a phone box on Chiswick Green to see if I was booked. And if the phone was out of order, Ruth would panic. And I can remember several days I'd get a telegram. They'd send me a telegram to say, "You're booked," to be the cheerleader. It was really, it was hilarious. It was a
Oh,
funny old time before
no,
mobile.
Flick Colby, Ruth Pearson,
Yeah.
Cherry. Oh my goodness, wonderful. Finally, and you bought this one clearly, so you'll know it. The Goombay Dance Band.
7 Tears.
7 years. Okay. And the very lucky question 13. Which artist and song spent an incredible 15 weeks at number one in July 1991? From a film.
Now, was it the theme from Robin Hood?
It was.
And
It
was
was.
it? I can see him now. He takes photographs. Bryan Adams,
Yes.
or was it? Yeah, I nearly said Wet, Wet, Wet. Then I nearly went down the Wet, Wet, Wet
That was
route.
that was also a very long runner, and it was
Yeah,
Wet, Wet, Wet that pulled their song because it had been on so long. They famously pulled their song Wet, Wet, Wet. But yeah, you think I always thought with this when we were playing, you think 16 weeks at number one. Who hasn't bought it by the fifth week? Who hasn't bought it by the sixth week? By the 10th and 11th, 12th week? Who still hasn't bought it? That's buying it enough to put it at number one. It's extraordinary.
also on Top of the Pops. But as it got longer, the tenure at number one, the video would be shorter at number one.
I know.
When you got to like week 7 and 8, it'd be like a minute and a half, as opposed to 2 minutes 30. Video on Top of the Pops got shorter.
Because people do get a bit fed up. If it's 16 weeks at number one, it stops being a great song. And you think, actually, people are still buying enough to make it number one, but there are enough people to say, no, please, not again. No, wait.
Mm.
Okay, we are at question 14. In June 1980, a Royal Business song topped the chart. For whom? And what was the song? A Royal Business song topped the chart in 1980. For whom?
Now the one that's jumping out at me probably isn't the right one at the moment. So I'm going to just say this to myself. I Drove All Night, Cyndi Lauper. It's not that one. I think she got to something like 11.
No,
Um,
that was much later actually. We were
yeah.
talking 1980. Yeah.
Roy Orbison. Wasn't I Drove All Night? Crying? No. Wasn't the Traveling Wilburys?
You dismissed crying pretty quickly there.
Yeah, I do like Crying, and you know what? I've come back round in a full circle, and I'm just trying to think who sang Crying. Was it?
And
It
got
wasn't
it to
me.
and got
It
it to
was a
number
cover.
one in 1980.
Who covered Crying?
He'd already had a number one and a number two. I was all right for a while.
It wasn't Jason. No. Um,
Singer-songwriter who sang about Buddy Holly.
I'm so annoyed with myself. Oh, come
Well, you've
on.
got most of them. You can't get all of them. Otherwise, you'd be embarrassed you've got so many.
Crying. Is he international?
Starry, starry night. And they were singing,
Not American Pie.
bye, bye,
Yeah,
Miss America.
yeah.
It's Don
Ah,
McLean.
yes.
Don McLean,
Well,
number one
he was
with it
on
in
TV the other
1980.
week. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Wow, I didn't
Uh,
realise he covered that. That one slipped me by.
yeah, yeah, and it was. I mean, I think for a lot of people, it was number one. It was,
What year
and
did
yeah,
you, Mike? Sorry, Mike. What year did you say that was?
1980.
Oh, okay, right.
Yeah, but I mean, why it's more difficult in the pop quiz, I think, in the 80s because it was more diverse than now. Now it's a sort of similar bunch of artists, but it was so diverse, and you think, wow, was that number one? Was that number one? But you know, they were. Diana Dawes starred in a video for which 1981 number one?
Prince Charming, fabulous video.
Absolutely. If I'm dancing to it at a disco, which is rare, you always do that. That's the only bit I can do. Yeah, the lovely Diana Dawes. Captain Sensible's number one, Happy Talk, came from which musical?
South Pacific.
It was South Pacific. Yeah, very good. 17, here we are. We mentioned it just now. 1983, Candy Girl deposed Spandau Ballet's True at number one. Who was the lead singer of the band? And who did he marry? Who also had number one, of course. Candy Girl, number one in 1983. The singer,
Well, it was New Edition, I think, and it was
yeah,
Bobby Brown,
Bobby
My
Brown.
Prerogative, and he married Whitney.
He did indeed. Married Whitney Houston. Clean sweep on that one. Oh my goodness. And 18. Which 1980s song contains the lines, "You think you're made too unstable, kicking in chairs and knocking down tables"? There's a
Oh,
madman
Mike.
around. There's a madman
Sorry?
around. There's a
Yeah, there's a
madman
madman.
around.
Call the police. There's a madman around. Too much. Pet Shop Boys.
Yes.
West End Girls.
Yes, absolutely. So often you've got to sing it in your head, haven't you? You go, give me a second. I've got to get to the chorus.
You think I've got the
Brilliant.
pools. When I get it right, I get so excited.
I know, but it was like that, when we did it on TV. When somebody gets it right, they may be a major star. But they go, yes, yes, and it's wonderful. And we just sold a couple of pop quizzes to American TV, hoping that they pick up the format because it'd be so great in the States. Would really, really work there. Okay, 19. Which 1987 number one was written by a 17-year-old singer from Los Angeles in the 1950s? 1987 number one, written in the 1950s by a 17-year-old singer who didn't make it to 18.
Buddy Holly? No. Ricky Valens?
Richie Valens is the right answer. Yeah, Richie Valens wrote La Bamba and Donna. Can you imagine? I mean, when you look at pictures of him, he looks like Buddy did, like a man. You know, Richie Valens was 17. We forget Buddy Holly was 22 years old when he died. You know, suit, tie, glasses, and a catalogue of the most fantastic songs. He was 22 years old. It's extraordinary.
Shocking. Shocking, isn't it?
Extraordinary. Amazing,
Mike,
amazing.
you look at the early shot of Bill Haley at Euston or King's Cross Station when he's standing at the train and
Yeah.
all the fans, the bobbies, the kids around there. Bless him, he looks about 36. You know,
And,
you know.
he was. He wasn't young, Bill Haley. But and quite bizarre as well. I mean, now normally people fly in, you don't know, you go through the airport. But he came in by boat to Southampton and then a train up to Waterloo. It's great. Rock and roll. Rock and roll. I wonder if he tore the seats up on the way up. Number 20, Wet, Wet, Wet and Billy Bragg had a double-sided number one in 1988. What were the two songs and on which album were the original versions first released?
Something When Wet, the album, maybe?
No, Wet, 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 Billy Bragg had a double-sided number one in 1988 with two songs. A song,
I'll get by with a little help from my friends.
yeah,
That was one of them. What was
yeah.
the other song? It was another Beatles track, wasn't it? What did Billy sing? Billy is mates with Jeff as well.
Yeah, he's great. I like Bill. He's great. He's a good lad.
Yeah,
He's,
yeah, yeah. All the stiff days in Chiswick, you know.
he's got,
Oh God, Billy Bragg. Let me help my friends. I want to say Help, but I can't imagine Billy singing Help. It would have been something like something obscure of the Beatles, probably.
they were both from the same album.
Oh, okay.
They were both. I'll tell you the album. They were both from Sgt. Pepper.
Oh, okay. So what did Billy do from Sgt. Pepper? No, it's gone.
Strangely, it was the only track on the album that wasn't produced by George Martin. He wasn't available, so didn't produce it, and Mike Leander produced it.
Mike Leander.
Strangely, Mike Leander produced it.
From what was the Saturday morning TV show he did with all the?
Oh no,
Can
no,
you go
you're
like that?
thinking. I know you're thinking of the other Mike. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Anyway, she's
No.
leaving home.
Oh, nice
She's
track.
leaving
Nice
home.
track.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh
She's
well,
leaving
I didn't
home.
end on a clean sweep, but never mind. I got
And then you did pretty well. It's always difficult being put under the cosh, isn't it? Because you think, oh my goodness, am I not going to get any? You know, am I really going to fall over here? And you can get a block. You know, I do that on things, and I've had people say to me, "Oh, Mike, come on, come on." I go, "No, no, no, I can't remember." And you can get a block. It's really easy.
You know what it is? When you ask the question and you mention the name of the artist, another one of their tracks comes in the head.
Yeah,
And so
yeah.
you're humming another one of their tracks and you're like, move over.
Yeah.
I need to get I need to put the other cassette in.
It was like on Pop Quiz. You ask someone a lyric question, and they're going, "No, no." You say, "I'll give you a clue. It was one of your hits." "Oh," says the drummer. "Was it?" Because he's just sitting at the back bashing away. "Was it one of ours?" "Okay." Very, very funny. Very funny. Yeah. So, what plans for you for 2022?
Well, I mean, thanks to the Heritage Chart, 2021 has been amazing. Set Your Spirit Free, Don't Wanna Lose That Girl, top 20 hits, and Loving You, thankfully in the top 10, which is wonderful. I've got a new track which I'm hoping to release maybe in February on my own, something different. It's a toss-up between two tracks. I can't make my mind up whether to release this very guitar-based strings track or to go with something a little bit more uplifting and sort of put a bit of sunshine in your life. And I'm tempted to go with the uplifting one because it'll be February and probably a bit grey and dull. And this particular track, when I play it, people say, "Oh, it reminds me of driving the car along the beach in LA or something." And I'm thinking, well, maybe save the guitar thing for later, but maybe go for the more uplifting one, you know? So that's what I'm hoping to do. Plus, I'd love to get out there and do some gigs in the summer, you know? I'd love to get on stage live. I really miss that. So I think it's going to be a mixture of doing some more writing, releasing some more material, as I say, hopefully in February, a new single. And then when the warmer weather comes, hopefully get on stage. And, there's nothing like that come with the fans, I
Oh
can't
yeah.
wait.
I mean, I did a gig a couple of weeks ago, and they said, "Will you get up? Will you go and do 6 songs?" I said, "Yeah, sure." And I would say it's not getting me up's not the problem; it's getting me off again that's the problem. Sure, you don't want a few more, but no, I love it. I love playing live. I mean, it's great fun. And the two guys I played with, they said, "Oh, we got a stool." I said, "Stool?" I said, "I don't want a stool. I stand up to play. Thank you very much. It's better for singing. You fill your lungs." I said, and also I move around. I'm performing. I'm not sitting there gazing at guitar. I'm performing. I always remember, when I was a kid, seeing John Lennon saying that he walked out in the middle of the stage and looked the audience right in the eye. I've always done that, and I played with people on stage who are much better than me. And afterwards, people said, "Oh, yeah, you were the best." I said, "No, I wasn't the best." I said, "But I just looked as though I might have been the best because I came in the middle of the stage and actually looked straight at you and didn't look at the guitar when I'm playing and moved around." So I think there's a bit of showbiz there as well, isn't there? Really?
Well, you performed it. You're a performer. Some people, as talented as they are doing this. You get out there and you perform it. Talking about not wanting to go off stage, I remember Cliff telling a story about Cilla Black. He was at the Albert Hall and he asked her to come on and do a duet with her, and it was a real up-tempo zinger. And she'd run on, done it, but she didn't want to leave the stage, and she sort of hung around with him and said, "Should we do another?" He went, "No, Cilla, get off." But because she'd done, yeah, because she'd done the one, you know what it's like. You get up, if you do one song, within 10 seconds, your adrenaline's going. You're at the ends of your finger, everything's tingling. You come alive, even
Yeah,
if you've got a bad back or a bad leg. Once
yeah,
I tell you, you don't want to sit down. You're not Roger Whittaker. You want to be up. So I can believe that about Scylla. It wasn't that you wanted to hog it. It's just that it took you the first song to get warmed up. Midway through, you're 90 seconds in, you want to do your album.
yeah. Absolutely right. And Cliff's done that as well. Our band, he said to me, "Will my band play at his 50th birthday party?" In the guy, I said, "Yeah, of course they will." And the guy said to me, "Do you think Cliff will get up and do a number?" And I said, "Try and stop him." I said, "And it won't be a number. It'll be." They said, "Which ones?" I said, "I don't know. We'll have to work it out on the night." And I said, "But the problem will be getting him off again." And he said that. He said, "Well, I'm here now. I might as well stay." But yeah, it's true, isn't it? Once you're up there,
It's in the blood, Mike. It's in the blood. It's just there.
yeah. Good stuff. Daniel, you did well. Good luck with 2022. And we'll say thank you. And in a moment, we'll ask you about your blue plaque. So, Daniel, in the distant, distant future, when they say, should Daniel James have a blue plaque somewhere, where would you put it? Various people, when I talked to Cliff, for example, he said, "Oh, I'd have the Two Eyes Coffee Bar in Old Compton Street. That's where it all began for me." Cheryl from the Fizz said, "Oh, I'd have it in my old apartment where I started, where it all broke for us." And all the neighbours went, "Oh, well done." And the roller will pull up outside this old flat. And that's where I'd have it. And I think Paul Young wanted a flat where he wrote most of his early songs. So there's always somewhere that means something to you. So if you were to be awarded a blue plaque, where would it be?
Do you know, Mike, it's really weird. An old girlfriend of mine was talking to me the other day because she's writing a will. And she said, "Have you done your will?" And of course, I haven't, which I probably have to do at some point. But she said, "You must leave a note and I mean, presuming that I'm going to go first. She said, "You must leave a note and let me know your instructions. Where do you want your ashes sprinkling?" So in my head at the point, I said, "Well, can you put half on my old school field, Brereton School Field, and can you put the other half, go to Hollywood and sprinkle them on the Hollywood Hills?" And that's a similar thing to what you're saying. If I was, I mean, I'm never going to get a blue plaque, but if I ever was going to get a blue plaque, actually, you know where my heart would be? Television Centre, Wood Lane.
Ah,
I had so many happy times there, Mike. I being a cheerleader, and then I presented a show called But First This, and I used to do the birthdays, and I used to, we had this show on a morning called But First This during the school holidays, and I was in TV Centre every day, Monday to Friday, and it was such a happy period for me.
yeah.
And adding that up with all my Top of the Pop shows, when they turned TV Centre into Half Hotel, I was heartbroken. That should have been a listed building, you know.
Yeah,
Should have
I
been
totally
listed.
agree. I mean, I've had the same. I lived in there. I mean, they said, "Oh, you should bring your bed in here," and you'd walk down the corridor and say, "Oh, I've got a program. Could you do this?" And so it was a home for home. You just felt comfortable there, really. Yeah.
I know each assembly. I know the basements, that little photo studio in the basement. Or, I could walk around there with my eyes closed. And I haven't been there for ages, but my heart is still there. So if I was fortunate enough, I would love mine to be at TV Centre, please.
There are probably people still walking around there now because they can't find their way out, going round and round in circles.
Can you remember the cheese rolls in the assemblies?
Oh
Sometimes
God.
if you're starving halfway through Top of the Pops or in
Yeah.
in one of the breaks, I'd go and get a cheese roll. It was like biting into a brick. The roll was hard, and the cheese was so thick, and it was the only thing you had to sustain you. But just great memories of people. I can remember, people were always in the basement, their changing rooms, and they'd walk up the stairs, and you'd be standing there and see these stars just coming up the stairs, just
Yeah.
amazing. Love it. I did Song for Europe there, and I can remember, yeah, I didn't win, as you probably know, but I can remember sitting there, and we were rehearsing, and I went out, and the House Martins came up the other stairs, and then Michael Crawford came up the other stairs. And you just look, and it's just like, who wouldn't want to work there?
Yeah. No, you're absolutely right. I remember that in the restaurant and things. You'd walk in. I remember when I first went there and I walked down and this bloke said, "Hello, Mike," and it was Val Doonigan. And I thought, Val Doonigan. So I went home and told my parents. My father said, "You met Val Doonigan?" It was great. I mean, all these people that passed the baton on from another era and stuff like that. That's what was always good. Or when we were there, you'd see a couple of people from Doctor Who walking around in costume and stuff like that. So it was people filming other things, and you remember in the dressing room you had the ring main, so you could switch it to hear what was going on in all the different studios. You could hear all the conversations, everything that was going on, and all the things they were filming and shooting in other studios. It was wonderful.
Of course, when I was a cheerleader, I really didn't spend any time in the changing rooms. But when I was in Yale, that's exactly what I remember, because when you're a guest on Top of the Pops, you just go up for your bit. You know,
Yeah,
so you spend hours in the changing room, and I can remember flicking all the channels, and there was a Play for Today on, there was Play School in another studio,
yeah.
Tomorrow's World in another studio. It was just, for somebody that's interested in television and in music, that was, I was a kid at Christmas with all my toys, and more so you. It's like when you mentioned the BBC bar. The first time I ever went in the BBC bar, it was like Christmas. I was with Michelle, my girlfriend at the time, and she used to come. She worked at the dog track next door. She'd moved down from the northeast.
White
She worked
City.
at the
Yeah.
dog. Do you remember the White City? So I'd get her name on the guest list for Top of the Pops when I was a cheerleader, and she'd come in. And I can remember one week I was dressed as Adamant. Of course, I looked nothing like him. And the head of CBS came in and went, "All right, Adam." He thought I was Adamant, and Michelle was walking behind him, and she just rolled her eyes. And we would just walk around we'd go to the Blue Peter Garden one day. But when we went up into the bar, the first thing we did the next day when we got home was ring our parents and tell them that we'd been in the BBC bar. And then we told them, because on one section you had the drama people, in the middle you had the sports or the Tomorrow's Worldy people, and then on the side you had the Top of the Pops crowd on a Thursday
Yeah.
night. And it was like, I'd go in there and you didn't know where to look first.
It was wonderful. I remember going up to the bar, and Paul Ciani, one of the directors, one time I said, "Oh, left my money down the dressing." He said, "Oh, don't worry, I'll lend you a tenner." I said, "Oh, okay, thanks, Paul." And every time I tried to give it back to him when I went in there, he said, "No," he said, "I don't want it." I said, "Why?" He said, "Because I want to shout whenever you come into the bar, 'You still owe me £10,' which he did for years. I said, "I'm trying to give it back to you." So I don't want it back. I just want to be able to shout, "You owe me £10" every time you come in. But the site that it was on, you're talking about White City next door, of course, that was the site of the 1908 Olympics. And that whole area was I think the Anglo-French exhibition. So amazing, amazing history that whole area has.
Unfortunately, just very short-sighted local councils or whatever. I don't know whose responsibility it is, but I think it's heartbreaking. I think that should be a monument. And people that want to work in the business should be looking at that place and looking at the history, and they should have reels of people that were like yourself live, because you made it look so easy. People that I grew up watching, you made it look so easy, and that was what inspired people like me to do it, and I would never have been. So when I was walking around with Michelle, we were pinching ourselves because we were where we watched the people like you make it look easy.
Yeah. Well, I think it's passed down the line, isn't it? You see somebody else and you go, oh wow, I'm working with them, somebody you watched when you were a kid and things like that. So, Dan, anyway, good luck for 2020. So go on, you were about to say something.
No, I was just going to say, I just had a quick flash in my head talking about when I was young. My first record was called Dream Lover, and it was a cover of the old Bobby Darin, and it came out in a white heart shape. And you were presenting Saturday Superstore at the time, and you had Cilla Black on, and you got the record out of the carrier, and you said, and of course, this lovely record from Daniel James, Dream Lover, and you gave it to Cilla, and it was a prize in the competition. So there we go. We've come full circle.
Dream Lover, come my way. Dream Lover. Oh, what a good song. Good song. Good stuff. But sadly not a hit. Maybe next time round. Maybe next year. The up-tempo disco version of Dream Lover.
Can I just say quickly, the 2 weeks before I brought my version out, Dana brought a version out, and I was in a record store in Glasgow, and I rang them and I went, we've had it. Dana's got it out, and she kind of got the lower end of the chart, which just mine was scuppered by then, so it came out with a flutter and a splutter.
Yeah, these things happen. I was saying, so I was down in Brighton for a meeting at the end of last week, and because we're talking about doing a TV heritage chart and hopefully filming soon, doing one, seeing if it works. And I said I was doing outside broadcast in Brighton, and this guy said, "Yeah, darling," he said, "see who's here." And I'm standing there going, "God, really?" He said, "Oh, mate," he said, "God, can't believe you're here. Let me shake you by the hand." And I said, "Oh, that's very kind of you." He said, "Oh, this guy," he said, "is one of the best songwriters going." And I thought, "Oh, wow, that's an even better accolade. Thank you so much." He said, "I've got all his stuff." He said, "Come here." "Who is it?" She said, "It's Mike Batt." I look so unlike Mike Batt, it's untrue. So I had to stand there and sing, "Remember You're a Womble." I had to be Mike Batt for a moment or two.
That is amazing, because you're so not like him. You don't look anything like him.
I know.
Wow. Oh, well, he thought you were famous.
Oh dear. Daniel, good stuff. Thanks for playing, being a good sport, and we'll get this out pretty soon.
Mike, it's been a pleasure. Thank you so much, and thank you for your support on the Heritage Chart. You are a diamond. Thank you.